IEBC is reading more into that, although IEBC says it printed double booklets of the 34A. The extra forms are needed, according to IEBC, for the other stakeholders. So that's why the IEBC says they intended and they did print out extra form 34As. Ruth, so you're seeing all these issues coming up right now. There's an issue with, and this has been playing out in the public for a couple of days now, the Venezuelans and, of course, IEBC at the center of it all. And now you have this issue of, the ballot papers arriving and some of these documents, the Form 34A. And the Azimio team is reading something into it. From where you sit, and IEBC is facing all these issues, timelines are not on their side. Where do you think we are?
We are at a point where any miscalculation by the IEBC, any issues that arise that could shake, any issues that, controversial issues that arise will shake the confidence of Kenyans in the process of, in the IEBC process. And this is regardless of which political side you support. That when you get to a point where it's 11 days to the elections and you're hearing about, suspicious persons coming into the country with what IEBC later terms as non-important or non-strategic material. When you hear about, ballot printing, ballot papers, and basically just anything that could arise right now could actually lead us to a point where Kenyans either have confidence or lack confidence in the IEBC. And as it stands right now, the confidence in the IEBC is dwindling as the days go by. Because we are hoping that, or we were hoping that, Chebukati having managed an election before, elections before, that we should not be at a point where we are 11 days to the elections and we don't have absolute guarantee that things are going to run smoothly, We do not have absolute guarantee that the integrity of the system shall be upheld. So I think that, for me, I think that IEBC needs to get its act together. IEBC needs to have proper communication channels for any issues that arise. IEBC, and not just IEBC, but also supporting agencies, other government agencies that they will work in collaboration with to ensure that the elections are credible, free and fair, and the integrity of the elections are guaranteed. That they need to find a way in which whatever issues arise, they can be able to resolve them outside of the public glare, if possible, because when you see such things coming up, then the confidence of Kenyans is shaken, that no matter the outcome, no matter who wins the elections, the side that will not win the election will use all these incidences as the basis to say that, look, this election was not credible. And we would wish to see a situation where, moving forward, all the elections that we hold as a country are elections that people have confidence in the bodies and the authorities conducting that election, to the extent that the results come out and whoever wins says, look, we have won. Whoever loses admits and says, look, the process was credible and we are satisfied, and let life move on. But for as long as we will have these incidences, we will always find ourselves in an election where, regardless of the outcome, whether it is Azimio winning or UDA winning, or, regardless of who wins, people will always come up and say, and base these incidences as their reasons to say, look, this process was not credible. And to some extent, one would want to ask themselves that, is IEBC intentionally doing these things to put us in a position where we will get to a point where elections are disputed or not, and to whose benefit is all this going to be?
And are we perhaps seeing a situation where some would argue Azimio is also trying to politicize the whole election process by 11 days to go, and also just raising these issues of saying, why is IEBC printing extra, statutory forms, that is Form 34A, and looking at the timeline, and IEBC is saying, we need this for the other stakeholders.
The thing is, you have a right to bring up questions. If you feel that, look, something suspicious is going on, you have a right to question. And sometimes I think we tend to generalize and say, look, if any question arises, it has to be Azimio. Some of these questions are being raised by neutral Kenyans who are not taking any political side. Some of these questions are being raised by supporters of Wajakoya who are not necessarily Azimio people.
But
some of these concerns...
But in this context, you
yes.
know, it is the chief legal advisor of Raila Odinga who's raised these particular questions.
I understand that it is, this particular question is coming from Azimio, but other questions have arisen regarding this entire process that do not necessarily come from Azimio. And the point is that the question that I think we should be asking ourselves is that should we be at a position where, regardless of what comes up, we should just be quiet, you know, like if we see anything suspicious happening, be quiet, because at the end of the day, it will be perceived as if you're politicizing the process, you know. Should we get to a point where we should be so detached from the process, we should be so silent because speaking up means that, you know, you're politicizing a process, and yet things are literally happening that require people to raise questions about these things. So, or are we getting to a point where we are saying that it is only certain individuals that are mandated to ask questions about anything that arises out of IEBC without there being suspicion of this process being politicized?
Right.
Because some of these questions are even being raised by election observers. ELOG is raising certain critical questions about the process. Why aren't we looking at ELOG and saying that, look, you ELOG people are trying to politicize this particular process? So I think everybody has a right to ask questions. I mean, even UDA itself has in the past asked questions about the preparedness of IEBC, and yet we never looked at it and said that they are politicizing the process. Why is it that when Azimio raises questions, it is always painted out to look like they are politicizing the process, and yet anybody else who asks these questions, nobody raises the concern that, look, why are you politicizing this process, you know? So I think everybody has a right to ask questions. If anything suspicious is taking place, ask these questions, let IEBC clarify these issues. And that's why I was even insisting in the first place that IEBC needs to have proper communication platforms and internal dispute resolution mechanisms where when certain concerns come up, they're able to first consolidate what their response is and issue a clarification that brings satisfaction to whoever is questioning their processes.